I'd like to introduce Dave Clough, who's our first speaker and author of the Habitat Status Report. And Dave has worked with us ever since the beginning as a fisheries biologist and consultant, and we couldn't have ever done without him. And so welcome, Dave Clough.
The Englishman River Habitat Status Report. I've got 20 minutes to tell you about the health of the Englishman River watershed, but I'm going to tell you how I'm going to tell you to it, in what fashion, and that is we're looking for volunteers. And throughout this report, you're going to see work done by volunteers. I'm a fisheries biologist, but all of the best work that's been done on this watershed has been done by volunteers, and I see you all in the room here tonight. So my thanks go out to you and my appreciation go out to you. Couldn't have done this report, and we can't rebuild the Englishman River watershed without your help. And so this is both a thank you and an enlistment drive. So, but we did write a habitat status report, and we wanted to tell you about the habitat and just how the English River is doing. So it's a pretty big watershed on Vancouver Island. I think it's 7th or 8th. There's 324 square meters, or square kilometers. That's taken off the top of where? That's right, Little Mountain, before the fence. And so you're looking at what the primary activity on the watershed is, mostly forestry. About 88%, I believe. And Ken, you're here somewhere, you can correct me on that. And Ken Epps gets a lot of thanks from Island Timber for helping us out on a lot of the technical stuff on bioclimatic zones and forestry. So how's the English River look? As a big fish guy myself, I thought I'd throw this and let you know it's looking pretty darn good when it comes to fish these days. Look at those numbers. The early numbers in the 50s show it wasn't bad, but in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, we undertook a very big decline in numbers. And as you look in the later years, you can see that our trend is mostly good. That but you have to caveat that with the fact that we are enhancing both the Chinook and the pink still. Okay, there are Chinook releases. There are pink salmon incubated at the Englishman River side channel in the hatchery there. So that's helping those two runs along, but we've stood back from the coho and they're holding their own, and the chum as well. Those fish, and the reason they're coming back now is they were given a head start, a kickstart, with salmon enhancement programs of releasing fry or smolts into the river. In the case of the chum eggs, we grew them in the side channel in net pens, and we put eggs in the gravel for years, but we're not doing any of that right now. And yet the fish are still coming back. Why? Well, because the habitat has improved. We've made better homes for the habitat, and give the river credit, the river is getting healthier too. So, and the fish are telling us this. This is a really good way to say, well, just how is the habitat? Look at the fish. Okay, the Englishman River is about 16 kilometers long to the falls at the park. The headwaters extend the whole length of the river up to about 35 kilometers from the ocean to Arrowsmith Lake. There are 4 salmon-bearing tributaries. Shelly near the lower end, just behind us here, it's about 1 kilometer long. Morrison Creek has about 2 kilometers of salmon access. And South Englishman has about 5 kilometers of salmon access. So does Center Creek, about 5 clicks each. That adds up to another 16 kilometers, 18 kilometers of habitat. So in other words, the tributaries are just as long as the Mainstem. And that's going to be important if you want to deal with fish habitat restoration. It's a lot easier to work on a small stream channel and win than it is on a big one. So there's the watershed. There's all 324 square kilometers of it. And the Mainstem has been divvied up into hydrological segments called reaches. And there are 6 reaches that go to the falls, and then there are multiple reaches above. We went, in the studies of the research that we looked at, there's been hydrologists and geomorphologists and engineers and other biologists researching this river. They broke them up into these 10 sections. They also broke up reaches in the tributaries as well. So there's a lot of, and the reason biologists and geomorphologists do that is there's ecological diversity in every kind of habitat. And the river changes. It's not all the same. Low gradient reaches grow coho. Higher gradient reaches grow trout, and there are medium gradient reaches that they share the habitat. And nothing's black and white. You'll always find a few coho in higher gradient areas and lots of trout in lower gradient areas. But there's a lot of general rules that can be told by the way you break up the reaches. It's sort of like townhouses and condos and single family dwellings and all the rest of that. There's all those kinds of diversity in the watershed. Now, so let's start with the estuary. The estuary has 130 hectares of area in it. It's spectacular. So spectacular that in the 90s, the Englishman River Biosphere Group was formed, and we approached the United Nations, and we got the United Nations to adopt the Englishman River Watershed as a biosphere reserve. And this is because of its significant ecological importance to this biogeoclimatic zone. So on a global scale, the Englishman River watershed is considered one of the most important in the world for this kind of ecology. It's a template, folks. It really is. And the reason that they chose it was that they felt there was enough intact about it that it would be representative and probably be around for many more years to come. So again, I hope we're all here to make sure it does stick around for many years to come. So there's the lower watershed, or the lower estuary. There are habitat issues. We have human encroachment, and it has reduced the estuary. And obviously, from the photograph, you can see the kinds of development that can have impacts on the estuary. But it's not all bad. There are plant community changes too that are worth noting. There's been an extensive estuary study. And in other words, this report was begat by an earlier report on the estuary in itself. And Faye and the Mid-Vancouver Island Enhancement Society asked the status of the estuary, and we published a report a few years back on that study. And it was very interesting to find out that we mimicked a study that had been done 14 years earlier by DFO, and we found that the status of the estuary, the populations of fish in the estuary, hadn't changed. There were still the same numbers of fish and the same densities of fish. There were some significant changes in the plant community, and we are concerned about that. There are more invasive plants in the estuary. There's less plants in the estuary, and this is all primarily due to the invasive plants and wildlife, primarily the geese. So we do have concerns about the estuary, and the bare areas, the bare white areas in the estuary should be green. So there are health indicators on the estuary that need to be improved. Water quality in the estuary isn't as good as it could be, but again, we have found, since we took the study, that many things have been done, and it is improving, and through your volunteer efforts, those in the community, you're actually monitoring the water quality. But in measuring the water quality in 2009, coliform failed in our Stormont Falls, and PAH is oils and gas, polyaromatic hydrocarbons. So it's oils and gas. So there was evidence of that, and there was a lot of metals. And so we're concerned about that. But in talking to Mike and the town, what we found out, the town recognized this, the town of Parksville. And what a lot of the metals were old, rusty culverts. So we approached the town about our metals findings, and they said, well, yeah, we know that too. And so as a matter of fact, we've been doing an infrastructure rebuild of all the old metal pipes and replacing with non-leaching concrete pipes. So it's awesome when you're working ahead of the game like that and seeing that other people are also recognizing the problems and dealing with it. And they offered to show us a digital map of the entire network of storm drains and how the town is improving them all. So I thought, right on. So the idea of this information isn't to blackmail anybody about it. It's to work with people, identify problems, and get on with it. And so that was just one example. And so there's the river habitat. And so there's the estuary and Reach 1. This is these photographs were taken by Brad Rushton. Brad's recently retired from DFO Habitat, and believe it or not, we were hurting for good photographs of the Englishman River, and so Brad volunteered to take his time to take all these photographs for me. And so this is the estuary and Reach 1. And this is moving up the river above the bridge and into the Martindale Road run and up into Top Bridge is reach 2 and 3. And reach 4 is just getting up above Top Bridge and into along the park area. And reach 5 and 6, oh, this is 6 and 7 now. 6 is the last reach. It's right up below the Englishman River Park. And reach 7 is the canyon where the waterfalls is on the Englishman River. And there are habitat concerns in the Mainstem. We're still seeing a lot of erosion. Now, primarily, we have an underage riparian. You can see it right there. Those are not old-growth trees. They're not healthy, big roots that can hold and withstand flood erosion. So there needs to still be some work. So, of course, when the water drops, you see the river is bare and scarified of wood debris. Wood is needed to hold banks together and to hide fish and create biodiversity. That particular structure was placed by the BCCF, by the way, who have been they have put in about 26 woody debris structures in the last 15 or 20 years now. And, but there's what you can do to add wood. Now that's an investment in the future, folks. You start then and it's going to take 200 years, but you got to start now. If it's 200 years, you better start right now. So that's the kind of stuff that I'll talk about in terms of stewardship. We have sediment issues. This is up in the floodplain, and the river, when it gets this high, it takes away all that forest soil, then drags it back into the stream bed and buries the salmon eggs. Then, of course, if you have those kinds of floods in the winter, that's all your storage water going away on you. So in the summertime, you don't have much water left. And the river is overly wide, and so the little bit of water that it does have evaporates and dries and becomes lethal and kills all the fish. This is just at Perry's and right along Martindale Road, the last coho pool. And we got it, didn't we, Carol? Okay, so the upper watershed. Above the falls, there's 19 kilometers of river to Arrowsmith Lake. It's full of resident fish. It has dollies and cutthroat and rainbow. From our salmon habitat point of view, what we're concerned about is that everything up there gets knitted together and stays up there. And so again, there are projects in the past and ongoing to analyze, study, and protect those headwater areas, working again on, I saw Ken here, with Island Timberlands and Timber West on those headwaters. And it's great that we're having those communications and being able to work on that. So tributaries. Shelly Creek is our new project. We've been going at this creek for about 3 or 4 years now, and my goodness, what a gem. It turned out that Shelly Creek is the backup plan for all the salmon that get hit by the floods in the lower Englishman. This is where they all go. We put a smolt trap in there in 2010 and caught 3,000 juvenile salmon. We went, holy cow, there's not supposed to be 3,000 juvenile salmon living in 600 meters of habitat. So we operated the trap the following year and we got 8,000 juvenile salmon. And we thought, well, you tell the DFO people, they open their specifications up and they'll go, that's impossible. So we did it last year and we got 7,500 salmon in there. So it's just amazing. This is in 600 meters of habitat. And thank you to Bud Shelly and the Shelly family for helping with this program. And everybody else, the volunteers, you know who you are. Awesome group of people that have been doing this. And again, I reach out to those that haven't done this. It's a hoot and lots of fun. Okay, other tributaries. Morrison Creek in the headwaters. Morrison Creek has 2 kilometers of accessible salmon habitat. It's pretty good habitat. We used to run a smolt trap there when I worked with DFO on that. But what's really awesome is all the farms that have helped contribute to habitat restoration over the years, dealing with reducing the runoff off their property, which was causing them crop damage, and of course sediment for us. So it's win-win when you can do that. And those farms, Mercer, Const, Mullen, and everybody else there have indeed participated over the years in those projects. That's pretty neat when you knit a watershed together like that and work with all the people. And it was once we got to one property owner, they talked over the fence to the other guy, and they said, you know what, those green guys are really all right. They help you, you know? So don't shoot them. And it worked out. I didn't get shot. Dave did. He wore a red jacket. What a fool. The South Englishman is the largest tributary and probably right now the most difficult one to deal with because it is so big. It's still on a lower level of recovery than some of the other tributaries like Morrison or Shelly. So it's a bit wild and active still. There are woody debris placement projects on it, but it's wide, it doesn't have a lot of cover, and it goes very dry in the summertime, and it blows like crazy in the wintertime. It does have headwater lakes. Roto, Healy, Shelton, Ferguson Swamp is an amazing wetland. And it's coming along, but it's a challenge. More importantly is Center Creek, where again in 04 and then again in 09 with a revision, we have a long list of to-do items on Center Creek for the 5 kilometers of smaller fish habitat that it represents. So this is where you can drag a log into an undercut bank to provide cover for coho salmon, wire it up with 1/2-inch galvanized cable with your crew of Brad and Gord and Carl, and literally that log will stay there. It's not a big and energetic enough system that you get failures that you'll get on the Mainstem Englishman. So the Center Creek system, for lack of a better word, is doable for us. And so it's cost effective. There's some of the crew thinking about that log. And yes, we did move that with a hand crank. That's it. And actually lessen arms, a lot of arm strength. Okay, future plans. I wanted to, there is a job jar, okay? When we work on the Englishman River, we could list water quality, water flow, in-stream fish habitat, like woody debris placement, spawning gravel placement, excavation of side channels. We could talk about riparian planting and photo point monitoring, wildlife studies. There's just a huge list of things that are being done in this watershed by volunteer people, and I want you guys to consider, that haven't, to enlist yourselves in it, and to those of you who have, give yourselves a pat in the back because it's really working. Volunteerism doesn't, it comes with training. You don't have to go in blind. There's a lot of people involved in it, and it's really rewarding. And so it's not like we're from another planet. Maybe we are. But that's it. Anybody want to volunteer? Stick your hands up if you want to volunteer. Atta guy. Atta guy. All right, quick, take their names. Okay. I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
There you go.
Thanks very much, Dave.